Diversity Duo, let's do this, where culture meets commerce. So today we have invited Bill McAvoy.
He retired now, but he was the executive director of the Supplier Diversity Office. And Bill and I go way back from 2007. And he has been such a leader and a mentor to me that he was the right person to start this podcast with.
Yeah, I think the best part was when we first started talking about even doing a podcast. And we said, Bill McAvoy is retiring. Any chance you think he would come on and do this? And when we reached out to him, when he said yes, it was amazing. So we have prepared. I think this is going to be a great first show. I think the opportunity for us, when we started talking about where culture meets commerce, and, you know, for you and your business, M&A, supplier diversity consultants, right? Assisting small businesses in getting certification, talking about supplier diversity programs. For my business, LN Westgate, to be able to help big businesses work with small businesses that are certified, implementing supplier diversity programs. Who else but Bill McAvoy to sit here for our first day?
Absolutely. So without further ado, I want everybody, our first-time listeners, to grab your coffee, tea, or water, or whatever makes you happy, and get ready to hear his story. You will not be disappointed.
Okay, everybody. So Bill McAvoy, just in case you don't know about his long career, Bill has been part of government innovation and leadership. He recently retired as the executive director of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Supplier Diversity Office, which has been recognized as the most inclusive state supplier diversity program in the country. Supplier Diversity Office certifies diverse and small businesses and connects them with resources of public and private contracting opportunities. Bill's prior public experience, which I can't wait to dive into, also includes serving as Deputy Assistant Secretary, Chief Legal Counsel in the Operational Services Division, as an Assistant Attorney General, Environmental Advocate, Legal Counsel for Operations, Budget Director, Senior Counsel to the Attorney General in the Office of the Attorney General. He previously worked in some private sector for several companies, including Hewlett-Packard. Bill received a bachelor's in science degree in business administration from Merrimack College, master's degree in business administration from Suffolk University, and a Juris Doctorate degree from New England School of Law. And what I can't wait to talk about, Bill, is the 8 governors that you have worked under in your time at the Commonwealth. So welcome. Thank
you, Lisa. Thank you, Maria. It's truly an honor to be here with you today. It was an honor and privilege to work with you over the years, and I'm so impressed by your success since leaving government yourselves in terms of starting your own businesses and now being the diversity duo on this podcast. I'm so honored and proud to be here as your first guest. It truly is an honor to be here today.
Thank you, Bill. Do you want to start off? Because I know we have a ton of questions.
Bill, you have had a hand in shaping policies that have become the foundation for supplier diversity across the country. What was one of the toughest challenges you faced while developing these groundbreaking programs, and how do you navigate it?
Thank you. Well, there are challenges you face, and there are also, folks that are uplifting you. And I think that's where we truly benefited from. Having support from the top is really the most important thing. Having governors, 3 governors in a row where I was in the supplier diversity realm, where there was truly support from the top for them to, make it part of the fabric of state government and truly supporting the mission of the Supplier Diversity Office. One of the challenges we had was that, really supplier diversity in government really plays an economic development role as well as a procurement role, just in terms of its involvement. Previously, the Supplier Diversity Office was part of the Executive Office of Economic Development in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Then it became part of the Procurement Office. It really, in playing those roles, should not be in either one of those places. It really should be an independent agency. So one challenge we faced was making it an independent agency. So 4 years ago, we filed legislation that actually made the Supplier Diversity Office its own agency, got the budget quadrupled, increased the staff from 13 to 35, And that really gave us, the solid foundation to be able to grow the programs and to be able to develop policies and to play an oversight role with agencies. You certainly have, one of the biggest challenges, getting back to your question as well, faced in supplier diversity is introducing diverse businesses into the mix really is a change of behavior. You're trying to get prime contractors to change their behavior. They traditionally use certain suppliers as part of their supply chain. Also, agencies use certain suppliers as they're making purchases for direct purchases. So it's really a behavioral change. So that's one of the most difficult things I've found is really getting folks to think outside the box, to be able to say, let's diversify our supply chain by buying from more diverse businesses and buying from prime contractors that are going to do the right thing and make sure they're sharing some of their spend or their revenues with diverse businesses as well.
Thank you, Bill.
I'd love to dive into the economic impact. Can you, for those people listening that aren't in Massachusetts, can you talk a little bit about how impactful SDO has been to the communities within Massachusetts?
Yes, I don't. We don't. That's one thing we don't track is in terms of the dollars.
Okay.
In terms of the impact, direct dollars in the Commonwealth. However, this is one thing where I'll use my little cheat sheet here. One thing this list has grown over the years, and it's really an argument for developing supplier diversity programs, and it shows the impact. Truly shows the impact. And these are the bulleted items that I love to talk about. It reflects our values, supplier diversity. It represents our citizens. It addresses documented disparities, with diverse businesses not being part of the supply chain. It engages our constituents. It supports local economies because if you have small and diverse businesses throughout the Commonwealth that are part of the supply chain, again, it's helping the cities and towns, the gateway cities, and all the folks to be part of the process. It also promotes innovation because it's getting folks that are not part of the process to really introduce different ways of doing things into the Commonwealth's business model. It enhances competition by removing barriers and by opening up opportunities to diverse businesses. It also improves customer service because, again, you're dealing with additional, folks that are part of the supply chain in the state. It results in greater representation of underrepresented businesses in the Commonwealth, and also helps to address the very important wealth gaps, housing gaps, and wage gaps, which are faced by diverse, clients that own businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's, when I think about the behavioral impact that you first started talking about, that's what makes the process of changing a procurement and opening that door to ensure that it's not so much about, from my perspective, it's not so much about the diversity certificate, though that is important because it is the representation. It's about ensuring that you have opened the door to bring underrepresented groups to the table to possibly do their first bid their first bid, whether it's a big contract, a government contract, big business or government contract. It's the first opportunity that ensures it's the yellow brick road, right? It's the way in which they're going to be able, the diverse supplier, are going to find their way to doing business with a large organization that maybe they hadn't been familiar with before. And I think on the flip side of that is the customer base, right? When we know that the people who are performing the functions, whether it be staff, right, HR from an HR perspective, that diversity is being recognized, to then extending on to the supplier diversity group, that the representation is now being part of the customer base also. And what a great way, in addition to innovation, a great way to open up the opportunities for bringing brands and services to market to different community bases. I think
Absolutely.
It's really important.
Absolutely. One of the things that I admire about the work that we all did at the state level was how supply diversity was moved from being a line item to actually be an actionable priority. And I have always been so amazed that pretty much everybody was so quick to see the light. And moving towards the future now, you've been on the forefront of supply diversity for decades. Where do you see this field heading? And what should businesses, procurement officers, and policy makers should focus on to continue the progress?
Great question. Where is it headed? It really depends on, I think, the jurisdiction of where the state is. For example, if we're talking about public procurement in Massachusetts, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I've retired from there, but the Commonwealth is truly committed to continuing supplier diversity, growing supplier diversity. Over my oversight of the supplier diversity, the 9.5-year period that I oversaw the Supplier Diversity Office, we went from approximately 2,700 diverse and small businesses certified by us to about 5,600 diverse businesses. We also grew our spending, program-related spending, from under $1 billion to $2.3 billion per year, and including all of the other non-program related spending, grew to $4 billion. So again, it's being interweaved into the fabric of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a state. Some other states have similar programs. I know ours is the Commonwealth is the most inclusive because it does have expanded categories, not just minority and women businesses, which we've had for decades, but 9 years ago we added all veteran, service disabled veteran as well as veteran, in addition to individuals with disabilities and LGBT-owned businesses are all part of the Supplier Diversity Program. So again, that's another movement in terms of the way where supplier diversity is going. We've seen some other states and public entities. I think it's the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania has made movement, and New York City and the city of Boston. They've all expanded their programs after we were the first in the nation to include all those categories. So again, I see it as being an area of true innovation, and certainly lots of opportunities for folks to do the right thing and to try to be more inclusive in their spending. We see at the corporate level there are some corporations that are truly committed to it, some that are pulling out of it, some that are just starting up to get into it. So it certainly depends on the organizations and that. But I see it as being a positive area for growth. Certainly, and those 10 or so bullets that I mentioned are all arguments that I truly believe in terms of why people should do it. And we have to. There may be folks that have arguments as to why they shouldn't. They're not going to be doing it. But again, I think there's a solid foundation and reason why it should be an area of potential of growth.
As someone that my business is to assist small businesses and medium-sized businesses to become certified across many, if not all states, I have found out, and I have had clients from Washington State all the way down to Florida and everything in between. I have found out that Massachusetts is the most inclusive when it comes to certification, and I'm so proud of that, this state really, they're very open about opening doors for small businesses.
And I'm going to take that one step further, because I think when I talk to bigger businesses about how to implement their programs, right? And we know that there are companies called, there's WeBank, there's NGLCC, there's these national certification agencies. But if you're starting off, if you're a mid-sized organization that's looking at or considering how to implement a supplier diversity program, starting with state government, and for me, Massachusetts has always been, you can go on, you can download the vendor list, right? Thank you for that very much, right? Because it's an easy, accessible way to see and locate certified suppliers. And you break it down by certification type. There's a way to throw in the NAICS code, and bing bang, all of a sudden you have yourself a supplier diversity program, right? So the idea of not being able to locate diverse suppliers, or the cost of doing business, meaning certify or reaching out to a certifying agency to ensure that you're buying their list and you're buying their software. And again, I want to say that WeBank, NGLCC, and MSDC, important for many reasons, but starting with your state government is an easy peasy way to start, right? And that's a cheap, inexpensive way of entry, which is pretty nice. I'd like to think about it, because I'm going to move on to your tenure, actually, if you don't mind. And you had philosophies that when I think about the 8 governors that you worked under, Massachusetts is a funny state, right? Our politics are funny here. And over your time from Dukakis to Weld, Cellucci, who I honestly forgot about there for a little bit, Swift, Romney, Patrick, Baker, Healy, that's quite a group of governors.
That's quite a career.
That's quite a career.
And technically, I worked under 3 attorney generals, which were independently elected. They weren't under the governors technically, but
that's true.
So
I should have pointed that out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So when I think about supplier diversity and the changes that we're seeing, and we're going to avoid that conversation today. I don't want to jump into where we expect the federal government's going. Not interested in that conversation today. What I want to talk about, though, is here are 8 governors from Dukakis to Healy, right? We can see a direct line there. But in between, we've got a lot of different philosophies. Where your philosophy has been very consistent. You're a gentleman who came in really clear about who you are and how you fit in the world and what your expectations are of business in the world. What was that? What were the challenges that you faced in driving these initiatives? Because when I look at your career, you came in as a business analyst, I believe, a senior business analyst.
Yes, budget analyst for the Attorney General's office, as well as going to law school nights.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I mean, that's a heck of a move, right? And how did your philosophies, how did your business sense and business acumen and business philosophy influence how you maneuvered with these 8 particular? If you're looking at people who are saying, how do I move up in the state? What's your feedback for them?
Well, I think, going back to my youth, I was always really drawn to public service. What's not included in my 36 years of service to the state is I worked 5 years while in high school and college at the local registry of motor vehicles. So worked there part-time. And my parents were always very service-oriented, and growing up in the city of Lawrence, actually, that's in terms of my, what's drawn me to something like supplier diversity. Growing up in the city of Lawrence, a lot of folks, kind of looked at folks from Lawrence. I remember someone saying to me, it's amazing someone from Lawrence gets to go to college. And, really things that my parents always said, don't ever let anyone put you down, put you in a corner. And that's where really was the impetus for me to, when I had the opportunity as part of the Operational Services Division General Counsel, that was my role. When I had the opportunity to take on the role of Executive Director of the Supplier Diversity Office, it was like, yeah, these are folks that are being kept down. These are folks that are being put in the corner, that are being pushed aside, wherever you want to look at it, that I want to uplift. And so, it really goes back to my upbringing, my parents, always driving, talking about don't ever put anyone else down. We're all at the same level, and don't ever let anyone put you down. That was really the impetus for me to, drive the Supplier Diversity Office in the direction, and the interest in the in public service. It's I played many business roles in the Attorney General's office. When I was in the AG's office, I was in the Utilities Division, a Regulated Industries Division. I was a consumer advocate, and I was asked if I wanted to assume the role of environmental advocate too, where in the early stages of renewable energy and conservation and load management and all that was going on, the early stages of those industries, we were working with utilities to try to get them to implement those types of policies. The whole ESG, has always been something that interested me. When I worked in the Operational Services Division, loved the job in terms of working, providing legal advice to the agency, but the Affirmative Marketing program where Maria worked, and that's how we met, that was something that, really meant a little extra to me, and then the opportunity, to transfer the Supplier Diversity Office. I wrote the legislation to transfer it from SAMBA over to the Operational Services Division. I wrote the executive orders that created the Supplier Diversity Program and the Small Business Purchasing Program. That's while I was in a legal role. So, again, when the opportunity was presented, when my predecessor and someone who I learned quite a bit from in supplier diversity, Reggie Nunley, when he was retiring, I was offered the opportunity to take on that role. And it was just a natural and natural fit, and it's been just a very positive and uplifting experience to be able to help to lift it to the next level, make it an independent agency, expand the programs, expand the staffing, expand the focus to make sure we're doing the right thing for diverse and small businesses.
That's wonderful. I guess I have this other question that, are we doing enough? Are there places where we can do more? And if so, and I think about this one all the time. How can we do more? And how can we do more in a way in which it's not imposing, right? Because we don't want, supplier diversity is not supposed to impose or mandate. We have measurements and government, and this is more from the corporate side, right? From the corporate side, I never go into a client and say and mandate what they should be doing for amounts or at a granular level or at a high level. But I think the question I'm asking is more about, as people, how do we do more? It's a big question for you.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's another great question. It was about 9 years ago. I remember we met with the Supplier Diversity Office when I was there. We met with a group of minority and women business contractors. And we were talking about expanding the program, again, to be the most inclusive program by adding veterans, service-disabled veteran, LGBT, and disability-owned businesses. A lot of them were very concerned that the existing pie of what we spent money on they were going to, their slice was going to get smaller of that pie. And I guaranteed them at the time, we need to grow that pie. So that's, I think, the key is to really look at every opportunity, not just, the select opportunities, look at every opportunity as, a place where we could potentially grow the programs, grow the amount of spending. So it's referred to as discretionary budget, discretionary spending. That's where you have discretion over what you can spend on certain things. So one of the things before I left the Supplier Diversity Office was we implemented the policies that we use on procurements and spending of purchasing for goods and services and construction. We implemented the same approach with grants. The Commonwealth gives out tens of millions of dollars per year in grants, hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever it is, in grants. And here's an opportunity if you're giving grant to a city, perhaps say to them, we're going to include some language in here that says you should try to do business with diverse businesses. So again, that's growing the pie. We also, when I was in the Supplier Diversity Office, we were only reporting and only working with executive agencies, the 75, quite a few executive agencies. There were a couple outside of that wanted to be part of the program. But what we, and what I'm referring to outside of that are the independent agencies and quasi-public agencies that don't fall under the direct oversight of the governor. And that includes like the Mass Sports, MBTAs, Mass Convention Center Authority, et cetera. So there's been a real focus, again, on growing that pie by trying to pull in more of those other public entities into the Commonwealth spend. And that's how we've been very successful, where we had none reporting through our annual report. This past annual report, we had 15 organizations that all included, that have developed supplier diversity programs and that in some form, some are doing a better job than others and they're not required to do so. But again, growing the pie, trying to get more eyes focused on doing the right thing. We also developed what's called the Supplier Diversity Playbook, which was aimed at municipalities and these quasi-independent organizations. And it basically provides, again, the playbook for them to be able to develop their own programs.
Yeah.
And again, they can do it at all different levels. They can come all in and do it the way the Commonwealth's doing, or they could just, again, try to be more intentional and more conscientious about who they're making purchases from.
Yeah, I really appreciate that one. I think, one of the things that I have been saying since I started my business was intention plus action plus data equals supplier diversity.
Absolutely.
Right? And that really means you don't have to come out of the gate and think you're going to flip all of your contracts into being diverse. Nobody is asking for that. Nobody wants that, right? I believe in a procurement first supplier diversity program. What that means is that you begin with the intention to invite and introduce diverse suppliers to the table, and that you're building out those evaluation criteria, right? That action, build it out so that it's ensuring that you have the right candidate, the right business to be able to do that, and that you then track them, right? I'm just going to tell a quick story. I have a client who they wanted to replace one of a large business, And I brought to the table 4 or 5 diverse suppliers, and they said, they're all diverse suppliers. I said, yeah, no, I know, they're diverse suppliers. And they said, well, I don't know, we're getting rid of XYZ company. And I said, right, you're getting rid of XYZ company because you said that they weren't adhering to, they weren't, the long list of challenges and complaints. I said, you've already decided that these diverse organizations can't perform prior to seeing an evaluation. And I think to me, that's kind of the moment for supplier diversity, right? It's not about a bias and a prejudge of what you think somebody can do. It's still based on procurement. It's still based on ensuring that organization is going to be responding to an RFP, and you're going to measure and collect data to ensure they're doing their job. It's due diligence.
That's a great point too, and that all comes down to one of the other focuses of the Supplier Diversity Office is removal of barriers.
Yes,
it's so critical. And I remember looking at a request for responses, or RFP as they called in some other states, a few years ago, and it had a requirement that the business has to, the successful contractor has to have been in business for at least 20 years.
Wow.
And another one was you have to have done business with a state, at least 15 instances of having done business with the state. And it's like, why? If this type of work you're doing can be done for a state, a company, a nonprofit, whoever, and why do you need 20 years? What's the magic number of 20 years? You want someone, obviously, that can handle the capacity of the state,
Right.
but you don't need someone with that level of experience. And, again, those behavioral barriers I was talking about earlier, the terms and conditions barriers, with institutional barriers, those are the things that really need to be broken down to get people to think differently, think outside the box, and stop saying, okay, it's almost, there are requirements, for example, for hiring state employees that you have to be able to drive vehicles or
Right.
whatever, or, and with the cart, the job doesn't entail delivering things. It's just, similarly, you want to make sure that the requirements are in there, but that they're not onerous, they're not burdensome, and they're not intentionally discriminating against folks that,
That's
diverse and small businesses that we're trying to help.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we reach a place, hopefully, and I'm hoping 2025 is the year, where RFPs are simplified. And I don't mean that they're narrowed to a scope where we're not asking important questions, but we tier them, right? Here is the mandated things that you must be able to do. Can you do that? Can you do these 5 things?
Right.
Okay. If you can, we're going to move you along. If not, thank you. We'll keep you in our database for a future time. Right.
And to your point, I believe that some of these procurements, when they ask the impossible, pretty much, they should be on past performance. You want 3 projects completed to a degree of satisfaction to the client. Here are my 3 projects. Yeah. No complaints whatsoever. But to your point, as we look ahead, Bill, right, I'm always curious to hear people that are on the forefront. What trends or innovation excite you the most? And there's a second question to that. Excite you the most about the future of supply diversity? And if you could make one prediction, what would that be?
That's a tough question.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Well, some of the trends that excite me, I'm just looking at some of the accomplishments we had at the Supplier Diversity Office. I think technology, is really important. I think a lot of it's about data, because Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council, Son of Women in Enterprise, National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, NAVOBA, and the Supplier Diversity Office, the state of New York, et cetera. So we all have our own databases, and our database, the Commonwealth, that is public. Other folks are not public. So. One of the things is really the data, because there could be folks you're doing business with already, prime contractors that are certified, and no one knows that. So that's the low-hanging fruit. So being able to get access to data, I think, is something that's really important. One other thing is through technology. And so in the Supplier Diversity Office, one thing we really focused on, Maria, as you know, was streamlining the certification process. 9 years ago, we had a paper-based 32-page application that filled a 400 square foot storage room, with applications and all that. We completely streamlined that process, made it electronic, put it online, again, you want to make sure you're eliminating burdens, improving customer service. We also developed at the Supplier Diversity Office a couple of years ago this system that we've been rolling out in stages known as the Supplier Diversity Hub. And that's a really cool system because it allows agencies, first of all, to get a better snapshot of how they're doing spending-wise during the fiscal year, with diverse and small businesses. It also allows the agencies to require prime contractors to report how they're doing, which diverse businesses that they've worked with. So again, we're putting more data into that system. Then it allows the diverse businesses to validate and say, yes, I did receive that check from that prime business, to confirm that. And it also has a matchmaking process in there where a certified business can say, I'm looking to get on a prime contract. I'm looking to bid, but I'm not big enough yet, so I'd love to be a partner to someone. So it allows, and vice versa, for the primes to look for diverse partners. So again, a system like that, again, technology, all in that's one system, the Supplier Diversity Hub, where folks can get together, they can, match opportunities. There's reporting going on. There's tracking, compliance, et cetera, all of those types of things. So I think really in the area of streamlining processes, eliminating barriers, improving technology are very important. And one other approach we took at the Supplier Diversity Office, getting back to your comment earlier, Lisa, about intentionality, we were driven from intent to impact. The only way you're going to you're going to be impactful is if you're intentional. And that is, we can sit there. When we were part of the procurement office, we had to kind of step back a bit, and we had to let the diverse businesses find out about the bidding opportunities. Now that we're independent, as an independent agency, the Supplier Diversity Office is able to more affirmatively reach out to diverse businesses and say, here's a bidding opportunity. Let us help you, connect you with resources such as Maria and other organizations that can help you fill out the bid. Let's help you get certified. Here's a training that can provide you opportunities to learn how to use the bidding system or whatever. Here's an event that you can come to where you can try to network with people. So again, by being more intentional, I think that's one of the key areas of potential success for supplier diversity programs. So that's what I really envision. All of those things, helping us to get to the next level.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned the Supply Diversity Hub. Can you talk a little bit about, this is a program that I absolutely adore, the Small Business Purchasing Program. Can you talk a little bit about it? Because every time I have done a training or I have a new client come to me and I mention SBPP, it's like they never heard of it. And so can you expand a little bit on that and why it's so beneficial to the small business community in Massachusetts?
Absolutely. So the Small Business Purchasing Program was created originally by Executive Order I'm forgetting my numbers. You see, retire and you start forgetting numbers. 523, Executive Order 523, and then was reaffirmed by a couple of executive orders, and now it's still in the latest Executive Order 599. And that program actually relates to small procurements. And when you think about it, it's like small businesses may not be able to handle a $100 million contract. They would love to get a $100 million contract, but may not be able to handle it. So for small procurements in the Commonwealth, which is currently, again, when I left there less than a month ago, set at under $250,000 per year. So if you have a 3-year contract that's $700,000, that would be, a small procurement. Those procurements are advertised in a way that they should be awarded to a small Massachusetts business, unless a small Massachusetts business does not meet the criteria, the selection criteria. Then agencies can evaluate larger procurement, larger bidders, and the definition of a small business is any business that is under $15 million in revenue, under 50 employees, based in Massachusetts, and in business at least 1 year. So again, that's an opportunity with those small procurements to really get people to get some experience, in the procurement process. And then, if they're able to expand their capacity to be able to bid on larger procurements down the line, if they grow beyond those limits of under 15 million, et cetera, that's great. They won't qualify for the small business program anymore, but they'll be able to, again, grow their business and they'll have that experience they can take with them on the larger procurements, which again are over $250,000 per year.
Amazing. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
That's a great deal. I want to jump back to your Tier 2 reporting as part of the supplier, the Diversity Hub. So reinforcing or you're confirming tier 2 spend reports against the small business or with the small business. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes. So first of all, there are two different systems that are used for reporting. The Operational Services Division, which is the Central Procurement Office, uses their Vendor Report Management System or VRM system. So all statewide contractors report their diversity spend in there. So a prime contractor on a computer contract would say, hey, here's who I'm buying cables from, or here's who our lawyer is, or here's those types of folks that are either in the supply chain as subcontractors, or that are what's called ancillary services, which are those folks that are providing corporate or operational types of services. So those are all reported through the vendor report management system for statewide contracts. For non-statewide contracts or department contracts, they're done through the Supplier Diversity Hub. Very similar in that the prime contractor goes into the system, says, yes, this is the contract I'm on. Here's how much we spent. Here's the business I spent it with. Breaks it out whether it's, again, subcontracting or ancillary. And then, the system will generate emails to the subs that will say, please confirm this amount.
That's amazing.
So that's something that I keep saying we, are rolling out. The great folks that I had the opportunity to work with, amazing people at the Supplier Diversity Office. That was the best thing, in leaving that office, knowing that it was in such amazing hands with the people, the policies, the systems, everything, and most importantly, the culture and the belief in supplier diversity. But yes, that's the purpose of that system. And they've also been rolling out municipal construction reporting to be done through that as well. So, for example, if a school is being built based on state funding, with some state funding involved, the prime contractor, they would have to report that subcontracted spending as well.
Wow, that's really great.
System. Yeah, it's awesome.
That's great to hear. I love a little check and balance.
Yes.
I for the longest time, I know that there is the affirmative market in construction. I would love to see more municipalities use certified vendors and have inclusive language in their procurement process. What do you think is preventing that from happening?
So one of them is the laws. One of the issues is the laws. So Massachusetts, for goods and services, the state itself is what's known as a best value procurement state. So there's best value versus low bid, which if you were to boil it down to the simplest terms, a low bid obviously speaks for itself, whereby for goods and services, when cities and towns are buying certain things, they have to give it to the low bidder. Best value, the Commonwealth's law, which is more general in nature and not as prescriptive, allows for you to create a selection criteria for a bidder to say, we're focused more on environmental issues, or we're focused more on having a good supplier diversity plan, or more on delivery or something like that, and not all on price. So with construction, unfortunately, it's all low bid based. So therefore, your hands are kind of tied in terms of things that are put in the policies. However, through the disparity studies that are done through the Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance for construction throughout the state, the Affirmative Marketing Program, their Affirmative Marketing Program, and the Municipal Construction Affirmative Marketing Program base their goals on that disparity study. And that disparity study has pretty prescriptive goals for cities and towns. So the Supplier Diversity Office works closely with the Mass School Building Authority to make sure that language, again, is in those RFPs, and to make sure that when cities and towns go out to bid to build a school through state-funded school projects, that it has the requirements for those projects, to have minority, women, and veteran goals in those projects, in those projects, excuse me. Again, the Supplier Diversity Playbook that we developed, we hope they'll use that for goods and services. Procurements, and we realize Chapter 30B, which is the municipal low bid, goods and services law, is a little more difficult to roll that out. But again, there are opportunities for municipalities to do that. I know the Supplier Diversity Office was also looking at expanding their reach beyond just schools, but that's why they're working with the Board of Library Commissioners. If the state is providing funding for a library in a municipality, or if there are other types of construction grants or whatever that are being provided to a city or town, to have that language and to have those goals in the procurement is very important. So I wholeheartedly agree with you on that one, Maria.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Boy, I am looking through my questions, and I feel like we've hit on everything.
We have, but that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Because procurement is like you remove a layer like an onion, and there's another layer, there's another layer. But this has been such a great conversation. I even learned more of what I thought I knew. Now, thank you, Bill. I'm so well rounded now. Thank you.
I could think of. Oh, go ahead. No, sorry.
No. Well, I want to ask kind of one big overarching question, right? And that is that we are faced with I mentioned checks and balances earlier, and governance is the G of ESG, right? Governance is hugely important, and I think that's because I come from a procurement background. Hopefully, governance is important to everybody, but one of the things that we're seeing is a little bit of a breakdown as it relates to governance. How, I guess that, I'm looking for you to look into your crystal ball if you don't mind, right? What are you thinking about for the next handful of years? And from the people who are boots on the ground out there really trying to drive home that supplier diversity is about innovation, it is about resiliency, it is about for me, one of my main causes with my procurement hat on for supplier diversity, I truly believe it's a mitigator for risk, far more than it's given credit for, right? And when I think about all of the things that are terrible and happening in this country today, and prayers out to California, to kind of put the blinders on and the procurement blinders. We have to think about what does that look like when we have parts of the country on fire, parts of the country under snow, parts of the, ships hitting bridges. You never know where risk is coming from. How do we help drive that message, and what should we be doing more as the Army for supplier diversity, right?
Well, it all comes down to the importance of having a diverse supply chain, and I can think of no better example when I hear about, obviously the devastation in California, North Carolina and Florida, with the hurricanes, the bridge in Baltimore. Then, the example I keep going back to is during the pandemic. So March of 2020, the Central Procurement Office was very focused on getting PPE, or personally protective equipment, and test kits when they were available, and ventilators and other types of items from anywhere and everywhere.
Yep.
An incredible effort by the Central Procurement Office, on all the Central Procurement Offices all across the country, the federal government, et cetera. So being part of that, it was really a broad focus, getting it anywhere and everywhere. About a month into that, again, I was overseeing the Supplier Diversity Office as part of my role at the time. We brought up to the head of the agency and to the administration, let's try to bring in some diverse suppliers and expand the capacity of diverse suppliers. So we looked at the folks that we had been buying from, the Commonwealth, and I think it was 150 whatever organizations that were being purchased from. Only 7 of them were diverse. No, I'm sorry. There were 70 prime that we were buying from, and only 7 were diverse. So we focused on expanding. I had this folks in the Supplier Diversity Office strictly focusing on working with small and diverse businesses throughout the Commonwealth. We expanded that number, doubled. The number doubled for total to 150. Instead of it being 14 out of 150, it was like about 70 out of 150. It went up huge. The number went up huge in terms of the denominator, I guess you would say, in that example, numerator, in that example. And one prime business that really pops out, I won't mention their name, I don't want to embarrass them, but they really stepped up. It was a black-owned business that was on a statewide contract, and they pivoted their operations and started doing outreach to a lot of the wholesale and manufacturing suppliers and all that. And they, in my opinion, saved lives throughout the Commonwealth.
Wow.
They, in 1 year, sold $52 million in PPE and test kits throughout the Commonwealth.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
And worked not only on the statewide contract, but also worked with outside of the statewide contract with the child care centers. Is it EEC, I think, is the agency that oversees them, Early Education and Care, that works with the child care centers. We worked with them to create a list, and with other suppliers as well, to create a list of suppliers in the state that could provide, again, the masks and gowns and other things in order for those folks to be able to care for children. And again, saving lives, you know what I mean, in that situation. So then, in our annual report, we had these spikes, you know what I mean? So then all of a sudden we had a dip because, and the good thing was the pandemic went away. The bad news was that there was a lot of diverse spending being used there. And that was a prime example of us being intentional as a Commonwealth, where we said, hey, here's an opportunity, for folks. And that's where I really see, getting back to your question earlier too, Maria, about where do you see kind of a lot of this stuff going. Emerging industries are really a prime area for this to supplier diversity and to really take off, because in existing industries, a lot of folks are stuck with their suppliers. You know what I mean? They're not going to change. They're going to stick with those same suppliers. And again, getting back to what we said earlier about changing that behavior is very difficult. When you're having an emerging industry such as offshore wind, you know what I mean? Such as PPE, we're out of the blue. We have to start buying personally protective equipment and other test kits and those types of things. Those newer industries or evolving industries are where we can really make much better inroads. So we tried to work closely with the Division of Energy Resources when they were going out to bid for the offshore wind contracts to try to get those bidders to be able to do more with diversity, both in hiring as well as contracting. And that's where there's been some great successes in those types of emerging industries.
No, that's great. And one of the things I want to add is the intentional redundancy, right? Because intentional redundancy is really, to your point, or to the point of what many companies ended up doing during COVID, how they pivoted, right? If you're not the biggest company, if you're not a big company calling a small company, if you're the size of your organization and you're trying to get one of the big players to move, and they're the vendor, you're not going to get them to move, right? It's really about ensuring that you're right-sized with who you're doing business with so that you can react in a way, right? It's easy argument for the government to be, Commonwealth of Mass to pivot. Of course, people are going to pick up the phone, but if you're a mid-sized organization and you're doing business with these mammoth companies, you don't have as much say when it's time for we have an urgency, we have need, there's all of these other factors that are coming into play. Just one more reason, intentional redundancy, kind of adding that second layer. We pay a lot of money in business for insurance. Why not have that secondary supply chain layer, right, as that support and that guarantee?
As a small business owner myself, I am very intentional when I need services. I make sure that I collaborate or I reach out to certified vendors, because it's going to do two things. There's going to be a collaboration already established, a relationship, and also it's getting me ready to go into that procurement. If I find a bid that I can go after it, I already have the partnership with all these other certified small businesses.
So Bill, I have a question. When I think about supplier diversity, I really think about it in three pillars, if you will. I think about supplier discovery, right, identifying diverse suppliers. Supplier retention. How are you working with a supplier? How are you ensuring that you're making kind of their existence as a supplier for your business easy enough or adequate enough or fair enough? But then there's the third pillar, and that third pillar is really about supplier development, which for 2025, I'm actually going to say my phone's been ringing a little bit, which is nice. For companies seeking some assistance in how to build out supplier development programs. And what I'm hearing from the corporate world is there's a knowledge that some things are coming down the pike around the SBA and around some cutting of budgets and cutting of funding. What do you think, and what's your advice for small businesses in assisting the build out for development? How can corporations help them, and how, as a small business, how can I help myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there are certainly areas where we all need to improve, and that one of the areas is access to capital. In terms of diverse businesses have much more difficult time getting capital than the larger competitors, obviously. Including commercial space. If they're trying to build a business, the need for technical assistance, has always been an area that has been difficult for the Commonwealth to provide. But there are folks out there like your businesses that can certainly help with those types of assistance, that type of assistance, and the ability to expand their capacity. A lot of businesses they'll get contracts with the state, for example, and they will, as a diverse business, I saw one example that really jumps out at me. They got a very big contract with the state, and they just rested on the laurels of that contract for many years. And then they lost the contract. They didn't win it next time around. And they had to lay off so many people and had to sell off so many assets because they didn't use that capacity that they built on the Commonwealth's dime, to basically look for private and other types of businesses and industries to be able to work in. So, the diverse businesses need to focus on that. If I can give them any advice, again, it's, get certified, as your businesses are. With the Commonwealth, it's free, so no cost there.
Do you want to repeat that one for listeners? Please.
Free.
Massachusetts Supplier Diversity Office for free certifies
minority, women, veteran businesses and nonprofit businesses in-house. We also have partnerships with folks that certify those categories. In addition to those categories, they certify LGBT, disability, service-disabled veterans, so all of those categories that the Commonwealth.
Very important message for listeners.
Absolutely.
And from both sides, right? For the small business, please, reach out to your state. If you're lucky enough to be here in the Commonwealth, please reach out to the Supplier Diversity Office for free to get certified.
Absolutely. And if you're not in Massachusetts, reach out to the Supplier Diversity Office because they do certify folks from other states as well.
Wonderful.
So again, get certified, attend all the supplier diversity training opportunities you can see. Reach out to folks like Lisa and Maria to find out about how pick their brains, monitor bidding opportunities, whether they be public or private. Market your certification. It's such an important marketing tool. I purchased something recently, and I saw two businesses. You look on on the internet, and you see who has better ratings and who has better this, better that. And one of them said MBE certified, and I said sold. So again, huge marketing tool. Attend in addition to attending the trainings, attending events.
Networking events.
Networking events are
very, very important.
I see both of you attending events all the time, and Maria's speaking at down in the Taunton area, to the chambers and all those types of events throughout the Commonwealth, and bidding on public and private bidding opportunities. It's no better way to find out how you're going to do, and you may lose a bid or two, but it's no better way to find out than to actually take the opportunity to bid.
So, Bill, on a personal note here, right? We know you're retired. What is next for you? What personal or professional goals are you excited to tackle in your free time now?
Well, I felt like a microphone drop moment. I've hit it, by being with the diversity duo. I mean, this is it. This was the goal to be here today. So speaking of which, I'll be starting some part-time work back with the state. There's a couple agencies that want me to work part-time. I'm limited in terms of the number of hours I can work when you're a retiree, but I'll be starting in a couple of weeks, actually, doing a little bit of part-time work.
That's great.
And keeping eyes and ears open for other opportunities. There was another public agency that offered some work, and there was a couple of companies that approached me about doing some work as well. So, there's things that I'm weighing. Just want to take a little time off, before jumping into doing anything. I don't want to get back to full time. That's why I retired. But it's been an amazing career, and it was the thing I was most proud of at the Supplier Diversity Office was the people, that I had the pleasure of working with, like you folks, over the years, whether it be in the Central Procurement Office or the Supplier Diversity efforts. And it was just an incredible group of people that are there running that agency that I had the pleasure of working with over the years, and being able to see so many of them grow and be promoted into new opportunities. I'm all about promoting from within. We have an extreme high retention rate in that agency. I think there were 4 people that left and 2 came back, and so 2 of those folks. Very, very proud of the success there, the camaraderie there, and it's just an amazing group of people that are so committed to this that I know they're going to make sure that Massachusetts, does even bigger and better things in the future. So that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an absolute honor, and what a terrific first guest. And Bill McAvoy, thank you so much for joining us. And you've set the bar high, so I'm not sure how we're going to have any other guests come in after you.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be with you folks, to see you again, and to hear about the wonderful things that both of you're doing in your companies, your respective companies, and keeping again the supplier diversity efforts going throughout the nation, actually, with the work you folks are doing, and to be able to have this conversation has truly been an honor and a fun time for me. So,
Absolutely.
And one, probably the biggest point of advice I'd like to make today is to make sure, I'm going to look right into the camera for this one, make sure you watch the Diversity Duos podcast.
Thank you, Bill, for
That's
the endorsement.
you'll get
Thank
the best
you.
advice.
Well, listeners, you heard it from the man. If you enjoyed this episode, and I know you did, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Until next time, this is Maria.
And this is Lisa, and we are the Diversity Duo, where culture meets commerce. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.